What's going on Twitch and YouTube? Welcome to episode 37 of the U.S.S. CERRITOS tutorial. I'm Zerrily and I just want to thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we got kind of a long one. We've got a 49-minute video. I'm really going to try to get some stuff done today. I don't think we'll be getting everything done on the shuttle bay that's remaining. I think there's going to be one or two minor things left after this, but we're going to be getting the majority of it done within today's episode. And this was kind of why yesterday's episode was a little bit shorter, because the next one was going to be really long. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. You can see that right now I'm actually on the lip of the shuttle bay where you come in from on the outside, and I'm smack dab in the middle, and we're gonna make some like cool looking runway lights on the entryway point to actually come in. So going in the very middle, we're just gonna count 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're just gonna do 6 gray blocks going back in the very middle. Alright, that looks pretty good. Let's flip over to the other side. We're going to repeat the same process, and then we're going to throw some color into that. I think more than likely we're going to use some red concrete blocks to give the illusion of red runway lights. And we'll do that on each side, going all the way back on this gray line that we just had. You know what? I don't like that, because it looks like it has like ears at the end, and it looks kind of weird. I even think in the very middle we're going to get rid of that gray and switch it back to the blue, but the red, those are doubling as runway lights, that's going to stay. And I think that looks actually pretty good. That helps out to make this area pop just a little bit more than it was a few moments ago. And that's going to be kind of a little bit of the theme with today's episode. We're going to be trying to enhance some of the stuff that we have already. We're going to be doing a little bit more work on our floor here. Got cut short a little bit by yesterday's episode. We're only at 22 minutes, but like I said, today we got a long one, and we're really going to try to knock out as much as we possibly can so we can move on to the rest of the ship, because I was on this past weekend, and I hit a break with engineering, and I was able to wrap pretty much all of that up and also build out the bridge. What else did I work on this weekend? Other than the bridge and engineering and the shuttle bay, I actually worked on the holodecks. And I'm actually going to end up redoing them because I was not happy with how they came out. I think more than likely I'm probably going to show part of what I did with them in the tutorial, but I don't think I'm going to waste as much time actually building them out. I think I'll show what I settled on, and then I'll go back and then make whatever changes to make it look a little bit better, because I think I could have done a little bit better job than what I ended up with it. But we're making some pretty good progress on this thing. I had somebody actually ask me in the comment section if I plan on adding any Jeffries tubes on the Enterprise D, and I actually plan on adding, I'm planning on it, but put it this way, it really depends on how large the ship is going to be, and I have to scale it off of the Cerritos. So my plan is, to, of course, to make it bigger, but it all depends on how much room I have on the interior. But like, even in the event that I don't have a lot of room to work with, I'm still going to facade it out. The Cerritos is even going to have facade Jeffries tubes. So I think that's something that is, I mean, it's kind of important to be on these ships. I mean, it was such a pivotal plot point sometimes in episodes of Next Generation, Voyager. I mean, pretty much all of them. Even TOS had a couple episodes like in their Jeffries tubes. So I mean, that's definitely something that we want to do. But we'll get there. Right now, we're going to focus on adding walls to our shuttle bay parking spots, I guess you can add them. And we want to make sure that we put our walls up that's not intruding on a pre-existing window, because that is the one flaw that, well, not necessarily a flaw, but something that we're just going to have to build around is these windows that we have here on the back of the ship. Even though we're not necessarily going to be fully forming these rooms into anything more than glorified parking spots, we still need to keep them there for pure aesthetics of the outside of the ship. And yeah, we'll just kind of run with it. Now, if we had made a larger scale Cerritos, we could have at that point, had more space to make more decks and whatnot. But to be honest with you, I think even building the Cerritos at this scale, we're going to have just a little bit of trouble fully fleshing this thing out. But that's okay. Where we need to, we're going to borrow from the Enterprise D. And hopefully, by the time we're done with this thing, we'll have close to a fully formed exterior and interior for the Cerritos, kind of on par with what I did with the Enterprises, Enterprise A, and then also the tutorial Disco Enterprise. Alright, so we're just throwing in these walls, we're just bringing them all the way up. Looking pretty good so far. Now, I don't think we're going to get to it today, but one of the coming episodes, we are going to come back into this area, and we're going to change these walls to a darker color. Because, I don't know, I didn't think about it right away when I was initially adding these walls, but then I was thinking about it this weekend, and I was just looking at, the entryway points, and I was like, man, that's a lot of white. And when I add in a shuttle, it's going to get lost in that background. So that's really my main reason at this point, that we're ultimately going to change the color of these walls to a darker color. Not black, but it'll be like a darker gray for sure. This way, when we add the shuttles in these spots, they're really going to pop out and you'll be able to see them easily. But I think this thing is coming out pretty good. Definitely taking a little bit more time to build this thing out, but this is so far the biggest shuttle bay that I've made to date. Well, maybe. I think that might actually be debatable, because the Vengeance, the shuttle bay on the Vengeance is pretty big, but it's not nearly as detailed as the Cerritos is. I pretty much stopped at the Vengeance on the interior, at least in the shuttle bay area, as after I built out the initial look of it. I didn't go back and detail anything. But it is a little bit bigger than Cerritos. It's actually got a couple of decks on it. But still, this shuttle bay is massive, all things considered. So right now we're just getting some detailing done on our floor. Some of the stuff I'm doing here, this is really just exploratory building. I'm throwing down some blocks, different patterns here, just to see what I like and what works. But I think ultimately what I'm going to do here is that there's a gray pillar in the front on the left and right. I'm actually, because right now it's only one row thick, I'm ultimately going to make that wall, instead of it just being one gray block and then one white block, I'm going to make both those blocks gray. And then, so both this block, we'd leave that gray, and then this back one is really what I'm talking about. We'd switch that out to regular gray. And then this row down here will make this gray, and then it'll look like a nice bracket. That's at least the idea that I'm going to be going for here in just a moment. So I'm kind of like, I'm slowly getting there, but I'm not there just yet. You see that wall there was messing with me because it wasn't at the same placement as the other one, and that was the OCD was kicking in. So I wanted to make sure both the left side and the right side match. And that's not something that you necessarily have to do. This is just something that I'm doing because little things like this are going to stick out to me and bother me until I fix it. Alright, let's get some lighting here in the corner. Alright, we're in good shape. The same thing for these, because we made some minor changes. Alright, we're looking good. So now those three shuttle ports are flush with one another, and that looks pretty good. I make a slight tweak over here, maybe. I could just go inside here and just move that block over one. So we're gonna do the same thing on the other side, and then we're gonna go back and then take a look at it and see how it looks. Because really I'm looking at the left side here, and I'm looking at the right side to see how much they match. Now they're not gonna be perfect because there's a cut here, and then there's a cut here, and it's transitioning going back. So there's no way to make that match perfectly, but right now it's pretty close. What we could actually do to fix this and make it all match, and I think we're actually going to do this, is that we're going to get rid of these half slabs, and this gray block right here, we're going to bring this going all the way across, this way that there's a gray lip, and then we'll come back again with a half slab, so it will really transition and bring this whole piece together so much more than it is right now. Like I said, I'm not there yet, but I basically gave you the spoiler of what we're going to end up doing. Because, you know, a lot of this, when I'm building these, I don't always have a clear idea of what I'm going to do. I'll have some type of idea to go off of, but then there'll be certain things like this specific scenario, as an example. These 3 doorways. I knew that I wanted to make shuttle bay parking spots, but I wasn't exactly sure about how I wanted to go about it. So that's why some of this, you know, I'm kind of making a couple of changes here and there, tweaking things, because I don't have a fully formed idea beginning to end. I have a starting off point, but I'm using the design cues and going off of my cut pattern really to help me dictate where making a lot of these changes. And it's funny, I actually had somebody else comment about that they've started making their own changes, and a lot of the times when they're making changes on their own to the ship, they'll come back and watch my videos, and they ended up doing the same thing that I did. And that's awesome, because if you actually start going by that and learning how to build with a cut and learning how to do that pattern, it's really going to help you to dictate where a lot of blocks are going to go, and it'll help you to solve problems. Because 9 times out of 10, when I'm not sure what to do, I'll start looking at my patterns and my cut lines and seeing how I can match things up. Because you, especially with these ships, you really just can't throw blocks down anywhere, because if you have a random block sticking out, chances are it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. You don't see that on Federation ships. They're very, very well made, and like it's pretty much like the crowning achievement of, you know, humanity as far as their technical ability. So like they look really, really good. So that's definitely one of the reasons why I do it this way. But I mean, the non-nerd related reason is that patterning really helps me to have fully formed builds that look nice. Because I've seen people, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I've seen other people where they have like the pixelated look, and you can tell like the build looks pretty good, but they're not going off of any type of set pattern. So there's always like, it almost looks like a piece of like shaved wood. That's the best way I can describe it. Like if you cut a log in half and you looked at it, you can see the wood lines on it, like the different rows, and like that's what it looks like, a lot of these builds that you'll see. And I mean, if that's how you build and you can make it look good, awesome. But I like these the patterning, and I really think that this helps to make not only the ship to come out a little bit better, a little more mathematically sound. I don't know if that's a thing, but I mean, I'm making it one. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just working out. So stick with me through the rest of this tutorial series, and you know, always got new videos coming out, showing you all how to do a whole bunch of different things. I can't make anybody, you know, build these ships right off rip, but I can at least show you every single method and my thought process and everything that I do to build these ships out. And you start doing them with me and start really learning what I mean by following the cut lines, which I talk about all the time. But when you start mastering that, that's when it really starts coming together for you, and you start throwing everything else together as far as order in which we build these ships, and it all comes together at one point. And it can be kind of daunting building these things. You know, it ends up being a lot of work, but at the end of the day, I love it because it's so relaxing. It helps to take my mind off stuff, and hopefully I've helped a few people on here in their quest to build large-scale ships, and we've got a ton of stuff coming in the future. So now, see, you get back a little bit what we got going on. I'm doing exactly what I said I was doing before, making those ports double wide and then adding the row in the bottom here to make it look like a full bracket. We're just going to fill that in. Might even get rid of that gray line right there. The second one. Nope, we can get rid of it. It's not going outside the ship, we can get rid of it. Now that we can't delete, that has to stay there. This stuff, we can get rid of this. And these lines, they don't look bad, but it looks a little too retro. It's not something that you're going to see on a next generation era ship, at least in this configuration. That's really one of the main reasons too why I'm getting rid of it. Actually, at one point or another, I want to make another pass at my corridors on this thing. I talked a little bit about that in yesterday's episode. I'm definitely going to be doing that this week, and not the straightaway corridors. Those look fantastic. I'm really happy with how those came out. But my circular ones, I think maybe I'm nitpicking myself at this point, but it's just my opinion. I think there's something to be desired, and I think I could do a little bit better with them. I know I'm ultimately going to have to slightly change the design of them. I had to do the same thing when I made my circular corridors for the Enterprise A, and I used pretty much the same corridors for the Disco Enterprise. I may end up using the same ones for this one, but just use a different color palette. I don't know. I'm going to be getting on here this weekend, and I really want to mess with that, but I really don't want that to hold up the rest of the build either, so if I do that, that's going to be one of the last things that I show, and I really want to get the rest of the ship fleshed out, so really get moving with this. So once we're getting to a point that we're at least done with it, then I'll start working on the Enterprise D, and that's going to take some time to do. I think I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to build Enterprise D, but if I make it the size that I'm planning on making it, which it should at least be twice the size of the Cerritos, maybe a little bit more, it could end up being a little bit less. It just depends on the scaling and if I'm able to pull it off without having any distortion in the build. But if I can do what I want, it's probably going to take at least twice the time to build it out, because it's going to be twice the size of this ship. And it's going to have to be that big, because Galaxy class is no small ship. That's for sure. Looks like I have a hole there in my hull. I'm going to have to fix that with the gray concrete. Perfect, looking good. You can see I'm taking these walls out. I'm doing that only because I'm making an adjustment as far as the placement on them. And it's these two middle ones in here. I really, not gonna lie, I kind of rushed it a little bit, at least for this part right here. I should have stopped for a second, taken a look at the size of the room, and matched it up just a little bit better, but I really didn't do that. I just went off of where the windows were, and I tried to make something. But I think now, with the adjustment that we've made, this should look pretty good. That half slab. All right. We're not doing too bad on time. We've already shot through the first 17 minutes. We've got about another 32 to go. If you're just catching me on the live stream, we've got a 42-minute video total, or excuse me, a 49-minute video total that we're doing today. Really trying to get some stuff done on the Cerritos, and trying to wrap up this shuttle bay portion of the tutorial, because it's kind of inflated out a little bit more than what I was intending it to, but I didn't want to leave the shuttle bay looking the way it did. I really wanted to flesh it out a little bit more, and I think by the end of today's episode, I think even anybody watching this will be pretty happy with what we were able to come up with. I think right now a lot of the focus we've been on right now is or parking spots for the shuttlecraft. It's not coming out too bad. I think it's going to look pretty good. Even with the windows here, I don't think it'll look bad. Still haven't added the 2 ports here on the end, which I'm going to be doing. I don't know if I do it in this episode or if it's in the next one. Okay, it might be in this one. Be taking off this whole wall, actually. And not the whole wall, just literally one row. So I think ultimately the cutout that I make right here, it's just not big enough. But this is the area right here that I'm considering, and I haven't decided fully yet what I want to do with it. This is why I said I'm going to have to, even after everything that we're done with the shuttle bay, I'm going to have to come back one more time just to finish it up because, well, unless I just decide to have it being another parking spot. But I'm thinking about this opening that I just made right here to be where the cargo is going to go. I haven't decided yet. I don't know. I kind of want to try to see if I can find any blueprints online of other ships, of anything I can use as a reference. I was actually watching a tour of the Enterprise D, a virtual tour, to try to give me some ideas, not only for when I build Enterprise D coming up, but to give me some ideas for the Cerritos right now. And really didn't get anything out of it, at least for the cargo room portion, and at least in how to incorporate it into this part of the build. And I'm sure it'll come to me, it just hasn't happened yet, and that's okay. Sometimes if it's not, you can't think of what to do, you just have to move on to something else, come back to it later when you can flesh out that idea. But even if we don't turn this room that I'm at, the doorway that I'm making, which will take us into this room, but even if I don't make that into an additional parking spot, or excuse me, if I don't make it into the cargo room, it's just going to stay as is and it'll be another parking spot for the shuttles. And the only reason I'm kind of hesitant too is because if I don't make these parking spots for the shuttles, that means I'll only have 3 of them. And the scale of this thing, that number seems kind of low to me. And I'm kind of feeling like I should probably have at least 5 of them, you know? So, I don't know. I have to think about it a little bit more. Maybe now that I'm thinking about it that way, I might end up leaning towards trying to maybe incorporate something on the sides of the shuttle bay, in the space that I haven't used yet on the saucer. Maybe just make a doorway to go into that and have that be the cargo room. I don't know, but if you're still with me during this portion of the episode, let me know what you think in the comments below, what I should do with the cargo room. Should I incorporate this room that I'm working on right now into it, or should I add something into the, onto the side and just build something completely, separate that it's its own for the cargo room? But we'll get there. There we go. Now I'm cooking. I need that half slab right there. I think I'm just going to stop it right there. I'm not going to bring it down anymore. I don't think that'll stand out any. It looks, I think it actually looks kind of pretty. Now this isn't horrible what I'm doing right now, but I don't know if I'm going to keep this. The only thing I don't mind about it is that it's giving me like a gray and white stripe, pinstripe basically, and it doesn't look horrible. So we're going to get rid of these half slabs going along here, and we're going to add one more row of gray concrete in their place, and then we'll come back again. And I'm doing this just to keep the pattern correct, because we could leave it as is, but to me, it would just feel wrong, and it doesn't, there might be too much of a gap there. But this is literally just a preference at this point. If you don't want to make this change, you don't necessarily have to. You know, at the end of the day, this is, if you're building this along with me, this is just a guide for things that you could do, but not necessarily things you have to do. Because always remember, there's 1,000,001 ways you can build these ships. They don't exist at the end of the day. There's no set blueprints in stone. I challenge anybody that has watched this video that thinks otherwise to send me a fully fleshed out blueprint of the Cerritos showing the actual interior, how they look. You're not going to find it. This doesn't exist. Doesn't exist for any of the ships. So have fun with it, do what you want, and go from there. But as you can see, if you stuck with me through this much of it, I used a lot of the Enterprise D to help me along the way to influence the build. I definitely think that's very fitting, considering how similar they look. Yeah, this part that we're almost done, but I definitely felt that this was needed to kind of add another row there, because to bring this the whole back side together now. And now it all matches, and it looks fantastic. Every single row we're going with a cut line, and it looks fantastic. Alright, so now we're just going to swap out these pillars with the gray, so this way that matches the other doorways. Alright, now we're going to clean up the floor in here, make this match what we did with the other ones. So not super difficult, just repeating the same process that we've done before. And bring these pillars up, making them double wide. Alright. Looks pretty good. And this is, I mean, it really is. It's way more than what I've done as far as detailing for any of the shuttle bays prior. I mean, this thing, I want to say it's at least twice the size, maybe 3 times the size of, no, I don't know if it's 3, but at least twice the size of the shuttle bay on the Disco Enterprise. This thing is pretty big. I mean, it's taking up the whole back end of the ship. Alright, we're in pretty good shape. We're going to get rid of these gray blocks right here. We don't need any of them, and we're just going to fill that in with the white concrete. Alright. Kind of an oddly shaped room, but we could always wall it off and make it a little bit more straight like the other rooms if need be, if we decide to leave this as an additional parking spot for the shuttlecraft. I'm not sure on what I want to do with that. I want to think about it a little bit. It's never a bad thing to think about it. You know, there's no rush when we're building these things. At least I've found that when you take your time with them anyway, you really think about what you want to do, they come out that much better. Hands down. Any ship or anything that I've rushed just doesn't come out as good. It'll get a little bit darker in here, but I'm not too worried about it at the moment. We'll come back in, we'll do maybe a little bit more lighting at a later point. Alright. I think here in a moment or so, we're going to start working on more detailing on the floor. Yep, here we go. We're going right back to the yellow. As you said, went just with the cut line, and then that perfectly matches And see, this is where I'm talking about. When you go with a cut, you're going to see where I put a block here and here. It perfectly matches up. And you don't see just a random block standing out. And I'm telling you, this is stuff that people will notice, and they'll see that you have a very well thought out ship as far as how you've built it and designed it. Okay. This was something I was talking about a little bit yesterday, but really, like, I'm using aircraft carriers in airports as a way to kind of like influence me for the flooring, as far as what I want to do exactly. Because anytime, like, if you've driven by an airport at night, like, you see all those blue and red lights, it almost look in like a hat. If you've ever seen that, if you've been up in a plane and you've seen an airport looking down, it's like all these lines. So that's really what we're working on there, at least on the floor portion. Right now, I'm just kind of edging out the back wall here a little bit. I'm not trying to make it too thick here. I'd added that extra row, but I think I ended up making it a little bit too thick, so I'm going to take that back out. My main reason for having it go all the way back to that wall there without really doing another full block right there is that I wanted it to show depth, at least in the top portion here, so that this way that shuttle bay control room actually looks like it's coming out of the wall a little bit. Alright, let's fix these blocks when I had to get all up close and personal with the back wall. Yeah, this thing is coming out really awesome. I'm really happy with how this shuttle bay turned out. I was honestly not expecting it to really come together this well. It looks great. Alright, so we're just going to close up this line here that I made yesterday. We don't need it. Alright, so right now I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing next, at least when I was doing this live, but we're going to be going back into working on the floor a little bit more here in just a second. So I'm counting these out because I'm trying to make like a runway strip that leads you into the shuttle bay and kind of a street at the same time that shows you the different parking spots that you can take and then go back out on the other end. Is essentially what we're going to be making here. See, I'm taking out 3 blocks. Want to make sure all sides match. So far, so good. Really what we need is a line on this side connecting this block with this one. And what we can do is we can cheat again. Rather than pulling up a pixel circle generator, we can just use the rows that we already have here and we can just move them. Well, not necessarily move them, but make a copy of them. So you can see that's what I'm getting ready to do right here. And what I'm doing right now is I'm lining myself up to see how many rows I'm going to have to add. So this is row 1. So that means I have to go 2 over. right here. And then I have to go back with a cut one and then add another 3 blocks. So I'm lining up where my cut's going to start. Now I'm using red right now, or I'm going to be using red, but I believe I'm going to be switching this back to yellow. It was a good idea to try it, and I wanted to use the red to mix it up a little bit and have a little bit more color on the floor. But I just ultimately decided that the red, it was really a lot of it, and I don't know why, but it just made it look a little bit tacky to me. So we're going to be switching this back to yellow, and then we're actually everything in between right in here, at least this strip in here, we're going to be swapping out this color here. And it'll look nice, have a little bit of differentiation between the color and the floors. We're still going to have a lot of blue and it'll look beautiful, but we'll have a lot more detailing. So before we get too crazy, I'm going to repeat the same process now, what I did on the right side, but now on the left side. All right. So far, so good. And this line, I'm just going to bring this straight across. Don't worry, some of this we're going to edit it, but I want to make sure that my two sides match up perfectly. I could have just looked at it and lined it up, but I just decided to build this down because some of this we're going to be using. Alright, so now I'm just going to bring out all my yellow rows out to that red line, if they're not already. Alright. So far, so good. Be honest with you, this part right here, I don't even know why I initially did that last row of red, because I took it out on this right side here, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. You only need to come up to that point. And even right there, that last row right here, we're going to end up taking that out. But that's okay. We're doing an exploratory building to get to where we need to be, but the shape is starting to come together, and you can see slowly what it's going to start to turn into. Alright, now we're using the gray concrete. Everything in between, that right here, we're filling this in. Anything in between the yellow line and the red. I haven't started to do that just yet, but in just a moment I will. And I'm not going to do all that live. I think, and I will show you, but I'm going to skip ahead to when it's actually been completed, and then you can pause the video and do it yourself to catch up with me. But literally, even everything in here, everything within this yellow line, and everything within here, we're going to be swapping that out to the gray. But it's also going to be very important. We'll pretty much put it this way. Everything between this yellow line and this red line, that's blue, we're going to be swapping that out to gray. But you're not going to want to touch the yellow, you're not going to want to touch the red, or this gray line here either. Alright, we are rocking and rolling here. We've shot through 37 minutes. Still got about 12 minutes left in today's episode. You see, I'm not quite there yet. I'm still trying to kind of figure out a pattern here that I'm going to go with, or at least a color palette. And it's going to strike me in just a moment that that's what I need to do. That this whole center here is the wrong color, and it's just too much blue. Alright, perfect. So I'm just double checking, make sure both the left side and the right side match. Going by one of my rules that if you make one change on one side and it's the same on the other, then you need to go and do that immediately. It's a way to save yourself from making a mistake later on down the road. It's always best to do that right after you immediately done on one side, because this way it's fresher in your mind. And you know, for whatever reason, if you get held up or whatever, you won't have to worry about trying to remember how you built it. Now see, now I'm starting to catch on and thinking that this whole center, I need to change the color of it. My first thought was to switch it to white. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, you know, I've got a lot of white on the ship to begin with. I think that white would maybe be the wrong color to go with. So for this centerpiece in here, we're actually going to, like I said, we're going to be swapping this out to not the gray, but the cyan terracotta. That's what it is. And that actually has a slightly different, ever so slightly different texture than concrete blocks. And it almost looks a little bit more like a aircraft carrier runway, like, you know, it has that concrete pavement look to it, which I think looks kind of cool. Alright, so now we've skipped ahead to where I've filled all of this in here. You can see I paused it so you could see everything in between this yellow line here on both sides. I filled all this in. But outside of it, I'm not touching it. I'm not touching any of this blue in here yet. So now we need to clean up more of this. We're going to be getting rid of the rows on in between either sides of the yellow and all the blue too, and we'll be swapping that out to gray also. And I think that's really going to help to bring this area a little bit more over the top than it currently is. See, just this little bit of extra detail on the floor is really going to help to make this room come together and come to life so much more than it currently is. Right now, the only thing that's holding this back is the red and gray stripe, which we're going to be getting rid of the gray stripe, and the red one, we're going to be swapping that out with yellow. Alright. Looking pretty good. See, now it's starting to look a little bit more like a runway. You have your two entryway points that will come together in the middle, and they run off into their parking spaces. Or at least that's the idea that I'm going for here. You can see right there I was actually about to swap out the red line, but I realize I didn't do the two ends, so I need to make sure that I do that first. This last row right here, that should actually be yellow. Make it match the other three. But I didn't catch that at that point. If I need to actually go back and see if I changed that, because I don't know if I caught that. So alright, we're slowly going to start to get rid of this gray line here. Say I didn't do it here, the last row should have been yellow. See, even I make mistakes. That's okay. I'll go back, and if I haven't fixed that, I'll fix that and make sure that that matches, because that stuff's important, you know? When you start making minor mistakes like that and your different areas aren't matching up that should be, these are the things that start to stand out, and then your ship, or at least illusion of it looking like a ship, it starts to fall apart basically. You see that last red block, I'm not filling that in with yellow, I'm actually switching that back to cyan terracotta, because I want there to be a cut line right there. I think that'll maybe look a little bit nicer and won't look so squared. Alright, and we also need to get rid of that gray line also. And you see I'm kind of messing around here and bringing that gray line back, but this last row here, this is so wrong, that should be yellow on this last line. I'm just not catching it in the video for whatever reason. So mad at myself for completely overlooking that. But I mean, that'll happen to you. I mean, especially as you really get into working on a single build after a while, sometimes you can completely miss things even while you're looking at it. Alright, I just did all that work and realized that I don't like it. That's why I said we're going to be getting rid of that gray line, because that's ultimately what we ended up doing. It's just too much going on right here. Too many patterns. The yellow line being a splitter between the gray and the blue, I think is sufficient enough. We don't need two splitters, you know? And it gets to a point where it's looking a little bit too much like a I don't even know the word to describe it, but it's got too many lines. I think this will look a little bit nicer. But again, this is just a preference. If you like that darker gray accent, you're more than welcome to keep it. almost done. Just got a couple more left. Alright. Not looking too bad. Still have that center runway strip of the cyan and the blue. We're going to swap that out with gray as well. This way is one solid color in the middle. I kind of wanted that, like originally my idea was like I kind of wanted like that to be like a notification point that like, okay, this is your walkway to walk into the main corridor, but we pretty much have already got that established. So I think at this point we should keep the design a little bit more simple, and also like this looks out of place with these colors here in this combination. You see when I switch this out to the regular gray, I think it honestly looks so much better. At least out here. Of course, when we're inside the corridors, I'll have that original pattern of the cyan and the blue in the center, but out here it just doesn't work. Yeah, see, I think the shuttle bay, she looks awesome now. I mean, this little bit of detailing that we did with the floor really helps make this thing pop and come to life. It looks so good. I mean, I really am blown away by it. So now what we're going to do, all these little cuts in between the shuttle bays, the blue strips, we're going to be swapping these out for the white. Because I don't want to have too much blue. Basically, the only blue that we're going to have is going along the back wall leading into the rest of the ship. And I think this actually looks pretty good. So we're going to do this set of blue, we'll swap that out to white, this one as well, and this one. So everything in here. All this in between here. We're going to swap this out to the white concrete. Want to make sure we're not going past that yellow line. I'm not going to build all of it out live. I'll do that off camera. But I want to make sure that I have everybody on the same page with at least doing this. So this way your build looks the same. So this one, again, we're making this part white, and then this area right here. We're not changing out any more blue. That back wall, everything over here, we're leaving this blue. And yeah, once you make those changes, we'll be done for today, and then we'll pick up again tomorrow. You know, sit back, take a look at the stuff that we've done, and let me know what you think of the progress that I've made today. And whether you liked it or not, I would still love to hear from you. And of course, for whatever reason, if I'm not being specific enough during this episode, you get stuck, need help, drop a comment below. I'll try to see what I can do to help you out. And any ships, any builds in general you want to see me do, drop a comment below. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap us up. We've gotten a lot done today. We had kind of a long one, but it was a necessary long one. So I hope everybody appreciates me putting that extra work today to get that out. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video today, help me out. Hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Also, new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you always get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, don't forget you can always catch my new live streams at twitch.tv/ZeroElite. And my live streams drop Sundays through Thursday nights, typically between 9 and 10 p.m. Eastern. You can also catch me at youtube.com/C/0elite. I've got new Starship Evo builds dropping on Mondays, and my Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Fridays. And those videos on Minecraft drop, or excuse me, those videos on YouTube drop at 10 a.m. Eastern. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I'll catch you on the next episode.